The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghosts. It's scaring them.
Alright, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Okay! Game on!
Game on!
Game on!
The password is...
Alright.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat about way. We're at the edge. It's clear for kickoff. Start. 2, 1. Boost to ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's great to have you along for the ride on this December 15th, Saturday, December 16th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you are having a great day and night. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the snowy mountains of central British Columbia, as we are here for your listening needs 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us as well. We are also live on the Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music, get your horns up for the 11th ranked top guitarist in the world, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy and Sons of Apollo. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Hey, we're all over social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio, and all you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. All of our archives are there. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Yes, we are up and running once again after last week's hacking incident, so it's looking good. Hey, we also have a GoFundMe account going right now as we are looking to raise funds to increase our studio broadcasting capacity. We'd love it if you gave us a hand. All you got to do is go to GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. We're just past the 1/5 point of our goal. So anything you can do to help, we would appreciate that. Now, we have 2 chat rooms for you to participate in if you want to get questions into tonight's guests. You can either be signed into Spreaker or into Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers group. Or if you're on Twitter, just go to the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I will get your questions and comments in there as well. Now, if you head to our website for $5 a month, you can become a member of the SOR Space Travelers group. You can also shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. Check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. And Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers, Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. We got some great videos for you as well. Tonight, we welcome back one of the most requested guests on this program. We call him around these parts the Crypto Guru. It even feels good to say it. Just say it with me. The Crypto Guru, whose love and passion for writing about everything cryptid has become a staple of excellence around SOR headquarters. Yes, Ronald Murphy is back. Ron is an accomplished author and an award-winning author whose books are some of the most popular in the topics of cryptids and the fairy realm. Ron also hosts Inside the Goblin Universe with Bryan Bowden. And Bryan has experienced some unusual events that drove his curiosity that would later propel him into the UFO community and becoming a paranormal investigator. And both gentlemen are here tonight. Guru, we're going to start with you here. You know how good it is to have you back on the air. I got to be honest with you, man. I'm a little nervous that you're back.
Hey, it's great to be here. As I was we actually chatted a little bit earlier today, and this is the first program that ever asked me to come on to talk about anything paranormal. So this is really returning back to my home, and they say that you can't go back home again, and I'm here to prove that you most certainly can. But, I don't know how much the listeners know. I was on a bit of a hiatus. I'm actually going through a very turbulent divorce right now. And so that's one of the things that was really putting everything on the back burner. But I am so glad to be back with not only you, Dave, but also some of the best listeners in the business, and the Spaced Out Radio. These guys are some of the best audiences around.
Well, I do have to say, my friend, it hasn't been the same without you around here, and I'm not going to get into what's happened in your personal life, but sometimes life gets in the way of what we like to do for fun, and I got to say, I know you've been going through a very, very difficult 2017. I pray and I hope on behalf of all of us at Spaced Out Radio that your 2018 is a complete 180 and all the success to you, my friend, because if there's anybody in this field who is doing the work honestly and is doing it with the love and the passion and desire, it's you, my friend, and you deserve every piece of credibility and kudos out there, because I think you're one of the best out there, and you deserve it.
Hey, I do appreciate that very much, Dave, especially coming from you. I've always counted you as a friend, and I still do, and I still listen to your show whenever I get the chance. So, like I said, it's like returning home. I can almost smell the apple pie and the coffee greeting me as I enter the door. So I'm looking forward to getting down to business and, taking some listeners' queries and then talk about all the strange things that's going on in the world of the paranormal.
Absolutely. Would you do us a favor, though? Because a lot of our audience doesn't know that you host a radio show, and I would love it if you told our audience about your show and our co-guest tonight, your partner on the radio show, Bryan Bowden.
This will be a great lead-in, Dave. This is an excellent way to do this. So, okay, let me tell you. So I do indeed host a show called Inside the Goblin Universe. It's only an hour long, so, for people that have MTV type of attention spans, this is a great way to go. It is recorded, so Bryan and I can work around our schedules because we both have kids, and, we're living this really kind of strange life. But I did originally co-host the show on the Paranormal UK radio network. It was actually out of England, and I co-hosted that with, a person who I had actually guested on the show with one time called Colin Schneider. He's going around calling himself the Crypto Kid and everything. So he and I had hosted a show together called Inside the Goblin Universe because, of course, that's the name that I had come up with. And after a few things that was happening over the radio network, UK Paranormal decided to part ways with Colin. And out of the blue, I thought that I was going to be a one-shot deal with the radio until Mr. Bryan Bowden completely unexpectedly messaged me, and he said he likes what I do. We had appeared on a show together previously, and it's made all the difference in the world. And that's one of the reasons why I'm glad that I'm coming on here tonight, because not only has 2017 been tumultuous in my personal life, it's also been very, very cruel to me in regards to my paranormal life as well. So we'll have a lot of things to talk about. But so, yeah, without further ado, this is my partner in crime, my brother in the paranormal, Mr. Bryan Bowden, who I could not do a radio show without. He's one of the best in the business.
Bryan, good to have you on Spaced Out Radio for the first time. Thank you for joining the Crypto Guru on this Friday night. Really appreciate you taking the time as well.
I'm actually very honored to be on your program. I know about your program for a long while. I have been listening to it when I've been up late at night on the East Coast, and I appreciate it coming on here, and I also appreciate this great introduction. I mean, it sounds fantastic. I want to know who this Bryan guy is.
You know what? And Bryan has also appeared. I mean, he's just not like one of these guys out of the blue kind of guys. He's also headlined the East Coast Paracon, where he's talked about UFO encounters. So, I mean, the guy's on his game. He knows what he's talking about. So we complement each other, and we feed off of each other. We both have similar personalities, but it's really. Whenever the first time back in quite a stretch, after quite a hiatus, to come on here with you, Dave, I had to bring Bryan on with me as well, because I do want to talk about some things that happen in the field. I don't think a lot of our listeners understand, not only on my show but also on your show, that what we do is very difficult. It cuts into our family time. We're not making money off of this. This is actually a passion that we do, and we're putting it out there to really have an open forum for people to go to talk about the strange and the unexplained. It's a fairly thankless thing that we do, but there are people out there that make it considerably more difficult. Bryan and I had a fairly successful show on a network. And we were completely blindsided by that network, and we were unceremoniously removed simply because a U.S. station wanted to carry our reruns. That was the long and short of this whole thing. So I know what it's like to be out there and having to struggle in this business to make yourself known, to make yourself heard. So I give you all the applause, Dave, because I really did not know what you went through and what you go through daily to put out a show. Now, you put out a 3-hour show 5 days a week. I could not imagine that. After doing that 2 or 3 times, I would be in the corner in the fetal position cowering. Bryan and I, we're going through heck trying to put an hour show out there with our time. So people really do need to understand that this is hard work. This isn't, a bunch of guys just sitting around having a good time. There's work involved. Bryan and I probably put 3 or 4 hours in on pre-production for every hour that we do of an actual radio show. So, I think that, this is the time as 2017 starts winding down to, start talking a little bit about the way the paranormal field works, that, it's not this glamorous type of thing, and sometimes it could be quite a cesspit.
Well, you know what? I'm going to do you a favor because I know you're not going to do it, but I'm going to do this, okay? There's a certain young person you used to work with that when he came on this show, when you introduced him to the world, I nicknamed him the Crypto Kid.
That's right. That's right.
And this little punk, and I'm going to call him a punk, started absolutely ripping you a new one in front of people whom you had taken years to respect. So, Crypto Kid, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're listening tonight, that's a dumb-ass move. That is no way to build your own credibility without what's trying to ruin someone else's. Okay? Ron has a lot of friends in this community, and he does it right. And for a punk like you to come on here and publicly state to people that Ron has things going on and to absolutely berate him, shame on you. Shame on you, and whatever this community throws at you out of reaction to it, you deserve it. I don't care if you're 16 years old, 17 years old, or whatever. Nobody deserves that kind of ridicule, especially from a punk who isn't even finished high school. So smarten up, do the right thing, and apologize. I had to say it, Ron, because it's pissed me off ever since you told me.
Well, I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that very much. And it seems that I've lost, and I'm sure this is the same with you, and I'm sure this is the same way with my friend Bryan. We lose more friends in this business than we gain, which is very sad because we're all dealing with a fringe subject. We're all dealing with the periphery of regular society. And you would think that people would be coming to us and forming, long-lasting bonds because we have an affinity for the same thing. And folks, it's the exact opposite. People actually are jockeying for position, trying to take whatever kind of knowledge they can glean from you and incorporate it as their own. This is one of the most cutthroat businesses that I know. Now, Bryan, he had worked on Wall Street for a number of years.
Yes, I have.
And I'm sure, Bryan, you will agree, right? This is probably that same type of mentality that you were witnessing in the exchange floors.
Yeah, it's a tough business. It's really interesting because both Ron and myself, and we go out there. We're ready to give you whatever information we have. We want to share. We want to coexist properly. You get some great ideas and research from listening to other people, intermingling with other people. These individuals that are in this field, I don't know what it is about it, but they will. It's like I feel it's like the Ides of March every day because you never know who has got the knife to stab you in the back, whether they're 16, 17, or 40-something years old.
That's right.
Or a grandmother or something.
That's exactly right, and that's what happens. And I think the Ides of March is absolutely appropriate because everybody out there is the Brutus. You know, we don't know. They all look the same. They all have the knife behind their back. Now, to put things in perspective, and I'm talking about people jockeying for position. Whenever I started to go through this kind of difficulty with my wife, you had known about it, Dave. And some close friends. This is even before I was dealing with anything with Bryan. So Bryan didn't even know anything about this. So whenever I was starting to go through this with my wife, people that knew that I was going through this difficulty were actually contacting conferences that I was to attend, alerting them to my problems with my marriage, and it was a possibility that I might not be able to attend that conference, and would they be willing to put the other person into the slot that I held. So that stuff goes on too. People just trying to get a speaking engagement will go as far as contacting conferences to basically air out your laundry just so they can get that spot at that particular conference. And I've had to deal with that. Now, not only in my personal life, but Bryan also had the radio station that we worked with before contacting people concerning Bryan's, you know, his state of being and the kind of person he was, just to see if they could get him kicked out of the spot.
Right. I mean, I was doing this East Coast Paracon, just was asked to go there. I had a presentation all set, and then I get a little message from Ron saying that one of the owners of this former station we were on, that I met once in person, mind you, just shook their hand. And I've been interviewed by them several times, and there was no issue or problem, even when we were interviewing, or I had my own show before this, a 2-hour show called Beyond the Realm, that kind of went away, and before I go into Goblin Universe. So they don't really know me, but I've been very forthright. I come out. I work as honest as possible. There's no secrets here. I'm not out to screw anybody. I'm trying to help, always offering help. And I get this message that the people that are running the conference are getting contacted by this person through email, and this person's slandering me. They don't know me. They have no idea who I am. Like I said before, I met them once. So I kind of got rather upset by this, because I don't like people speaking of me if you don't know who I am. I am actually a really great person. I know that's a little bit full of myself. I'm not trying to mean it that way. But I'll, bend over backwards to you. I do a lot of good deeds for people. It's just my mom raised me right. And when I got there, I proved it. And I proved myself, and the people at the conference, after talking with me, after seeing the reaction I got, which was, I started off with one person in the room, and I had probably one of the largest groups there that was standing room only at this point. It was packed. People coming up to me after the conference saying one of the best presentations they've ever seen, spot on, and I proved myself. I am not that person. So this is what you have going on in this industry. You have people talking about you that don't know who you are and making up slanderous lies and everywhere. And it's not a good feel. It's not a good feeling. I mean, all we're doing is we're talking about something. We Ron and I both love this subject because it's so vague, and it overlaps into the real world versus the paranormal world. Because again, there are certain cryptids out there that just because we don't have them in, present, doesn't mean that they don't really exist. We could have a Bigfoot eventually, and that'll be a new species in the universities. So, but crazy field.
It is, and what is also, I think, to scaffold off of what you had just said, it's very difficult to swallow when people that you don't know is doing this to you, but whenever the people that you really called good friends are doing this to you as well, is even worse. And there's a lot of camps out there, a lot of allegiances that are being made, and if you would step over that boundary and start, like I will do I do a lot of conferences a year. That's a way that I supplement my income. You know, I've got 5 kids. I have to have an income. So not only do I work, but I also, you know, I have to do these conferences. But, you know, and it's a very important thing. So whenever somebody attacks these conferences, that's hurting my livelihood, and that's nothing to play around with. But, of course, you know, I'm from Western Pennsylvania, a very small little place, a very cloistered type of place where everybody knows everybody else. And I truly love my fan base here. I mean, I do a lot of work here. But people that I called my very good friends who had been to my house, you know, we went on an investigation together, really have turned their backs on me because I've done conferences with people that they do not get along with. And, you know, that's no way to view this world, but it happens all the time. So I have basically been ostracized of attending any kind of conferences in Western Pennsylvania because of these people's affiliation with them. The one conference that the first conference that I ever spoke at a few years ago was the Butler Paranormal Conference. One of the best conferences that I've ever been to, and I will tell you that I have nothing bad to say about the conference. It's a very well-run conference. But last year, I was not put up into the room where the researchers were. I was thrown into a back auxiliary room where there was people like making soap and jewelry makers, and I was the only investigator back there. So I'm trying to sell my books that are investigating the paranormal, and you know, people don't even know that I'm back there. So I knew that there was something going on there, and before I even got home, they had all unfriended me on Facebook and blocked me and everything, simply because I was attending a conference with somebody who they did not get along with. And I swear to you folks, that is the only reason. Now, I was invited to the MUFON conference here just a couple of months ago by the director of MUFON at the time to attend the conference, and then I called about getting my table placement, and the new director, who is actually friends with the same people that put on the Butler Paranormal Conference, said that I was not welcome at that conference, and they had given my space to somebody else. Now, you folks, you have to understand this. The reason why this is happening is simply because I did a conference with somebody they did not see eye to eye with. Okay, I did not write a book with this person. I did not appear publicly with this person in any kind of movie or anything. It wasn't like he was promoting me or I was promoting him. We were simply at the same conference at the same time. So I have been banned from anything locally by these groups, and I feel horrible because there's so many good people out there that I miss seeing and I miss talking to. So for those people in Western Pennsylvania that were looking forward to seeing me at either the MUFON conference or at the Butler Paranormal Conference, the reason why Ron Murphy is not going to be there is simply because I was asked not to be there. So that is the true reason. And this kind of stuff happens all over the place. Not only are there, these little punk kids doing this kind of stuff to me, but there are grown men and grown women doing this to me as well. And it really is frustrating. And these are people that I thought were my friends. I counted as my good friends. I never thought anything like this was ever going to happen. So, again, let me reiterate, I'm happy to be back on Spaced Out Radio, and I'm very happy to be on here with not only you, Dave, but also with Bryan, because I think what I'm showing here right now is there's very few people out there that you can trust in the paranormal community, and you three are the top three people, or these two, and myself included, I guess, so I'll count myself. But yeah, you guys are the ones like I can trust absolutely. So again, I'm glad to be back.
Well, I do have to tell you that Paracons, you really have to watch where you go. I mean, I traveled 3,500 miles to go to one last year, and you were supposed to attend that one as well. But right. There was a couple of snafus there for you. But, you know, Eric Markham, part of my team, and Everett Thiemer, part of my team, helped set up all the tables and everything for the event. They didn't even announce when we were actually taking to the podium. So I had a grand total of 15 people for my speech. Yes. And on top of that, after the day was done, I'm sitting in the bar, And I have 2 listeners who came down from, I believe it's New Hampshire or New Jersey, to see me speak. Okay? They didn't get a chance to see me speak because our name was not on the list anywhere for what time we were supposed to speak. Okay? So, I travel 3,500 miles. The organizer says, hey, did you see the great article in the local magazine about the Paracon? Oh, no, I read it. And I read it, and it says all these TV stars who are going to be there, and we're getting people from Canada coming down. That's what I got. And we're getting people from Canada. So that was the start of our weekend. And then my guys graciously helped this gentleman set up because there is absolutely no help. All his volunteers didn't show up until about 11 o'clock in the morning. So here's Preacher and Everett and everybody else helping them set up. All right? And so I go speak. I got like 15 people in front of me. After the conference, I go to the bar. I meet up with Dave and Maggie, okay, and I'm like, yeah, I said, are you guys going for dinner anywhere? And they go, yeah, we're going to the VIP dinner. Or aren't you coming? And I said, what VIP dinner? Well, all the speakers are going to be are taking part in this VIP and guest get together. We paid extra money for it. We thought you were going to be there because we wanted to sit at your table. We weren't even invited. Weren't even invited. And here I traveled 3,500 miles to attend this thing. So I meet up with the organizer later on after that, because apparently there was also a ghost hunt that night that we weren't invited to.
Oh, right.
Right?
Sure, that's right.
So we happened to run into him on the street and said, hey, well, what's happening for tomorrow? What can we do to help out? Oh, nothing. No, you guys might as well just, hang out at around town, do some sightseeing, and thanks for coming.
Wow. See, that makes you feel really wanted, especially traveling that kind of distance, which I'm sure you probably paid for yourself.
Absolutely. Yep. I was told my hotel would be covered for the 4 nights that I was been there. I ended up having to pay for 2 of them. And I got no meals covered. So it was an expensive learning lesson.
That is absolutely the case. Now, Bryan and I did a Paracon that we actually had to pay for everything our own way and our own place to stay and our own food and everything. But I will tell you this, it's one of the best Paracons out there, and that is the Ocean State Paracon. It's all done for charity. Yep. All proceeds goes to a women and children's shelter up in Rhode Island. It's put on by Ken DeCosta. It's in July. Bryan and I will be there again this year. I cannot really talk enough good things about this place. It is one of those most welcoming, how would you describe it, Bryan? Very welcoming, very caring. It feels like your family whenever you're there.
It's 100% family. I mean, I got there, and I'm fresh. I'm the new guy for the most part. Everybody was fine. Everybody was family. Everybody was warm. It didn't hurt that we also gave Ken a full hour on the air, but that's what we do. We want to help you promote your program. We want to help promote your book, your movie, whatever you're doing. That's what Inside the Goblin Universe is. And when you're on our show, we feel that you're worthy enough and you're really worth listening to. It's very important. Pay attention to what we're presenting you with. But these people up at Ken DeCosta and his whole Rise Up Paranormal group are fantastic. And the associates that are around it in the area are just as nice. I mean, you can't think of a warmer group to be with and hang out with. It really does feel like family. And on the fact that you're helping out men, women, and children that have been abused, I mean, how you can't go wrong. It's a feel-good feeling.
And there are TV personalities there from various ghost hunting shows. Tennessee Wraith Chasers were there, and they're all up there on their own dime. You know, nobody was paid to play or anything like that. This is people just basically wanting to do some good things for a community, and I was quite honored to be a part of it. So, you know, whenever you step back and you see whenever these things are put on very well and the reasons why they're put on, you can actually start feeling good about the business too. So for as many negatives that I have about the paranormal community, I get one or two great positives that really carry me on for the other year. Brad Blair up there at the Michigan Paracon up in Sault Ste. Marie, I will be appearing up there I believe it's in September, August or September, and they already are doing the promotions for it right now. So these guys, you know, these names, there are so many people out there that really want to open up the paranormal to people, that really want to provide them a framework within the work, you know, to operate and to communicate and share ideas. These are the things that I want to be a part of, and I'm glad to see that there are a lot of good people out there. And Dave, again, I am so sorry that would have made my entire year if I was able to make it to the one out there where you're at, and unfortunately the wildfires kind of dampened that.
You didn't miss much, my friend. You didn't miss much. You know.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you, what I am glad about in traveling out there was I saw a piece of American history that I've never seen, where the Pilgrims first landed, and you know, to be in that historic area of Provincetown, Massachusetts, it was an absolute great experience. And I would absolutely love to go back there and really take the time to, you know, look around Cape Cod and see what it's all about, because it is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal piece of land and history and energy and everything that kind of goes along with it.
That's absolutely the way I feel. Actually, I would love to be able to do this. You know, I'm not making any kind of bones about it. I work right now as a teacher. I have a year contract, so you know it's renewed yearly. So we'll see what happens with that. But you know, this is my passion, and I would love to be able to simply do this as my only thing. Now, whenever I was married, I was able to do this as my only thing. But, you know, whenever you lose somebody, you know, the idea of heartache and, you know, a love being torn from you, that's a very romantic notion. But whenever it gets down to brass tacks, it's that loss of income that really devastates everybody. And with me having all the children, you know, it was imperative I get back to work as a normal job so I have, you know, a steady income. So I had to go back to work. But I would love, and I'm still pursuing, as well as Brian, we're pursuing, you know, to actually get a job within this, because this is something we both have a passion for, and this is something that we would love to do as our job, so we wouldn't have to worry about, you know, doing anything else but this. So we're still pursuing this. You know, every day we're pursuing something like this, and you know, the New England area is a great area. I know that you have a lot of stuff going out your way. It's just finding that perfect match. But you know, again, we're not here to lie to anybody or make up, you know, anything like that. We would love to have this as our full-time jobs, and you know, hopefully, yeah, I'm sure you would too, Dave.
Oh yeah, and don't forget, Guru, we had to cancel our Paracon this year due to the forest fires, and you were slated.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, because of the forest fires, right?
Yeah, and we are going to be doing it at the end of September. We're going to be putting advertisements up here probably within the next month or so on our website at spacedoutradio.com. So I have a spot for you, Guru. I have a spot for you, so make sure you start putting those pennies away.
I will definitely start putting those pennies away. That's absolutely the case. That's right. And then hopefully, you know, someplace up there will say, you know, we need 2 or 3 people for some sort of ghost expedition thing that does tours year round, and then Brian and I will just move up there, so that's no problem.
Works for me. Gentlemen,
you can do a Bigfoot expedition.
Hey,
that's right. There you go.
I know a place. I got to go check on our gifting site here. There's been some brand new snow, so we got to probably check it out on the weekend here to see if there's any footprints or knee prints or anything, because we added a couple of new objects to our gifting site that we have where we found prints in the area previously, and I put up some Christmas ornaments. That's what I did.
That could be interesting right there. That's going to be interesting.
Yes, I put up, I believe 5 of them.
Wow.
Well, when you gift, do you receive as well?
You know what? We haven't
straw figures.
No, we haven't got anything yet. But the one thing that we have had is, and we can't confirm it. I mean, reality states it could be a chipmunk, it could be a squirrel, a rabbit, a deer, a rat, or a mouse, or something along those lines. Okay, or a weasel. But we have these, you go to the dollar store and you buy those glass plant rocks that are kind of shaped and rounded. They're not very sharp-edged. They're very smooth. We placed a bunch of those around, and we've had movement with those. But the Hot Wheels cars that we have that are in bright colors, we have 2 Slinkies out there, they've done nothing. They haven't moved whatsoever. And
we have somebody in New York State that's been gifting as well, and they are receiving. It's on their property. I've tried to get onto their property. They've been very, standoffish about it because they want to keep it to themselves. But some of the things that the Bigfoot has gifted back had been Nookashooks, or it's Karens, for those people that don't know what a Nookashuk is, and also straw figurines or tall grass, almost like dolls, little dolls. And they're putting them back down.
Yeah, that's phenomenal to actually, because at that point you're actually having an interaction. You're having a conversation, or you're having a rapport with these things. So that's pretty cool whenever that kind of stuff happens.
This has been going on for about 5 years with this family that they've discovered it. They've heard the whoops and they heard the screams and the grunts and whatever, and then they decided to get a little bit brazen. I think that the daughter was the one that put out some fruit first. They took the fruit, watching it take it. It's very dead. They do it in the dark, and it's built up over time where now there seems to be a family there, and they're gifting they'll pile rocks together. They'll put grass and they'll make a ball out of it, or they'll do something like that with whatever means they have in the area.
Yeah, but this is all required. This requires a great deal of habituation, though, correct? I mean, this doesn't happen overnight. This is a gradual thing where
this is about 5 years worth of time.
There you go. Yeah. So give it time,
Dave. This
is
on their property. This is like going outside your backyard, and you know that you have these creatures in the backyard. So it makes it a little bit easier. It's not like a public lands or park or reserve. But it's in the area where we have our experiences very close to it. And the last one was recently where we actually did get some knee prints, big knee prints, and we have a whole bedding area. But we keep on asking them, and we're going to keep kind of nudging them here and there. But we'd love to do this. We'd just love to watch it. Even if they don't let us outside, I want to watch through the window.
See, I can tell you right now, we cannot put food in our area. So when we went there last week, because ours is in the middle of the wilderness, and when we went there last week, there was either bobcat or lynx prints coming out of where our gifting site was. There was 2 different sets of wolf tracks, a set of coyote tracks, moose tracks. Like, we got the gamut here, man. And if we leave food, there, there's no way that we could tell if it's for Sasquatch or not. But here's the interesting part about our gifting site, and I learned this from Butch Witkowski when I showed him the pictures, because when we built it or decided on where we were going to put the gifting site, there is, I don't know how to put it, but there's almost like trees outlining on the ground in a square. Okay, and then all of these other trees have been pushed, these dead trees have been pushed into these 3 live trees that are standing straight up, so it's almost like a half lean-to. And then if you go into the middle of this lean-to, the one healthy tree at about 10 feet up, the bark has been pulled off of there. Now, the gentleman whom I check with, he goes by in the Spreaker chat room as Bazooka Joe, but his name is Mark. Mark has been a professional hunter and tracker and hunting guide for the last 30 years. He's seen everything possible in the forest except Sasquatch. In fact, the one print I showed him, he must have stood down on his knees looking at this thing, mesmerized for about 15-20 minutes, because he had never seen anything like that before in his 30 years. And so Mark's the one who pointed out the fact that there was no claw marks. So that automatically gets rid of a bear. There's no branches broken, which gets rid of the idea of a cat, because the branches are very thin. They're not thick enough for a cat to crawl up or to sit on. I mean, they're not even half an inch in a diameter. That's how tiny they are. Like my son can break them off. And he's 4 years old. That's how weak these branches are. Okay, porcupines here are known to climb trees and rip bark off. However, once again, no branches broken, no claw marks on it. But this one section, it's about a foot long by about 6 to 8 inches wide, that the bark has been pulled off. And when I talked to Butch Witkowski about it from UFO Cop, he stated that a lot of times Bigfoot will try and get to the sap because they enjoy the sap on their fingers. It's like a fruit to them. So everything in this area just seems to be making sense. So that's why we put it there.
It's a great spot. The only thing I would suggest is if you have a high enough tree, you can put something about 15 feet in the air on a rope, and you may get away with some kind of food hanging there, fruit or something to that effect. Nothing meat-wise, because that's going to be taken by any type of, typical mountain lion or cat or whatever. But the signs we're looking for when you go out into these woods are these trees that are jammed within a tree that have no rhyme or reason for it to happen that way, as well as those peeling of the bark. We have a ton of that. On our last investigation, which was 3 weeks ago, we did not find the actual creature. This is the group that I'm with, Roxel Paranormal. The founder, Al, he was driving home. He actually saw this Bigfoot sitting on a rock in a one spot near these power lines. And he called me right up, and he says, I just saw this Sasquatch. It's got to be 900 pounds. I said, stop the car. And it's on one of these roadways where you couldn't stop. So I said, we'll go back tomorrow. So we went back the next day. And we found the typical kneeling prints. I mean, this is a big boy. It's at least 1,000 pounds. We found a bedding area there that probably easy a family of them are living in there. And the best part is the evidence where you have these trees that are about 15, 20 feet up in the air that are jammed into another tree and perpendicular to the ground. It's not your natural tree fall. So all the signs are pointing to Sasquatch. Unfortunately, we didn't see one, but we have tons of different, evidence spots there. The problem we have is we can't readily put a gifting spot there because of the fact that it's power lines and you don't know one of the workers are going to come there or the legality of it, because the last thing you need to do is have a legal problem. But where you are, with that spot that you are, that's fantastic what you're getting. I mean, how long have you been doing this, Mike?
We've been doing it for about 3.5 months when we first put things out there. And, like I said, though, Mark goes in. One of the big reasons why I'm glad Mark comes with us is Mark goes in and he goes in armed. And we've been growled out of there. Okay. I'm not I'm not a firearms kind of guy. Never have been, but Mark being a hunter, the time before I took Mark out there, we walked in there, we made our presence known, let the animals around the area know that we weren't there, or we weren't there to harm them. We were very loud, and we got about 70 feet in, and I remember saying to my friend Corey, I said, you know what, we got to go that way, and I pointed my hand in this direction, took 3 steps, and something big about 40 feet in front of us must have been laying down because we couldn't see it. and only 40 feet.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
and we got growled at for about 5 to 7 seconds in a very deep growl that said, you know what? I know you're not armed. I know you're here. I'm here too. You might want to leave.
Yes.
Yep.
I felt that growl twice in my life. And I use the word felt because it's just not a sensation of hearing it. Whenever I've been growled at, you can almost feel it. It actually does something to your body. You know instinctually that you need to get the heck out of there and get the heck out of there very, very soon. So, if you guys are still going back there, I give you all the credit in the world.
Well, you know
one of the things you have to...
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to mention about the growl. One of the theories I've had, and I think we're close to semi-proving it without having a live Sasquatch, is their growl has infrasound in it. And you can ask a ton of people when they get close enough to a Sasquatch, you get that uneasy feeling. But when you get the growl, it literally penetrates you. It's kind of like a lion growling. They have infrasound. And infrasound is part of their defense. There's plenty of creatures in the planet that have it. Even a couple of dogs have it. When they bark, it puts out this frequency that tells you straight up, I'm not playing a game. You need to get out of here. I'm a lot bigger than you. But I would recommend when you go in the woods, and you may not be the firearms, but you should always carry some kind of knife. And I do recommend a machete.
Yes.
They respect that a lot more than a firearm, believe it or not. And this includes with the typical dogman cryptid, because yes, bullets can kill you. But if you go back to Indians and native peoples, that machete, that knife will cut you in half. It will rip right through you, and there's no coming back from that.
Well, see, I'm a very spiritual person. So, Brian, as you get to know me, you'll understand. Ron already knows. Like, when I go into the forest, the first thing I do is I spread tobacco on the road, because tobacco, what I've learned from First Nations people, is it's a peace offering to Sasquatch. So the first thing I do is I offer tobacco, and I sprinkle it on the road, and I take a little walk, and then loudly I will say to all the animals out there, and people may make fun of me for doing this or not. I think it works, and I'll explain why here momentarily. But I will say a little speech, basically, we're not here to harm you. We're here to go to the Sasquatch site. We're not here to harm any animals. We are unarmed. Okay, Mark will have a gun with him, but that gun is to make sure that we are safe, because we're not meaning you any harm. We expect the same respect back. So I go through this whole peace, love, and light thing with it. And that time when Corey and I went, you got to realize that area is filled, like I said earlier, it's filled with wolves, it's filled with cougars, lynx, bobcats, grizzly bears, black bears. And when we got growled at from 40 feet away, I don't know why. I have no proof. Maybe this is just me thinking it because I was there. But I honestly believe there is no way that animal could not have heard me from the road. Okay? And I always say when we enter the forest, I yell out, okay, we're coming in now. And we make noise. And when we got 70 feet in, for that bear, okay, because I know it was a bear. Spiritually, I just know it was a bear. Everything felt like a bear. I've been around Sasquatch. I've seen 2 of them. I know that feeling. This was bear. But the whole point that I'm saying here is, I honestly believe that bear, and you got to realize this is the middle of September. They are now preparing for winter, where they are going to go after absolutely everything for food. And that bear literally growled at us and did not come out, did not move, because black bears are curious. Grizzly bears, they're just angry at the world. Okay, and they'll kill anything. No, it's the truth, though. Okay,
yes, it is.
It's the truth. Black bears are curious. That bear, after he growled at us, I said very loudly, I said, okay, thank you for letting us know you're here. We're leaving now. And you know what? That bear did not move. It did not come after us. It did not follow us out. Nothing. So I'm a firm believer. Like, for me personally, that's confirmation for me that giving that speech, going out, making the offering of tobacco, and telling them that, we're not armed. We're coming out of peace, love, and light. We're not here to harm you. I think there's something to it. Now, people, like I said, may call me crazy, don't really care, but it worked for me.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing that's what we like to talk about on our show Inside the Goblin Universe. We like to focus a lot on the idea of vibrations, about the vibrations that people put out, the vibrations that nature puts out. I'm a firm believer that every living thing puts out a vibration, and if we can tune into that particular frequency, we can actually eliminate any kind of animosity or any kind of ill feeling. And I truly believe that. If you go into the woods with no purpose to do anything, any harm, notice how many animals you see, but if you go into the woods with a gun, immediately something changes. And I don't care if anybody calls me, a whack job or what have you, but there is a spiritual element in it. But the spiritual element that we're talking about is something that not only the First Nations people had shared, but even if you look at, at Catholicism, St. Francis of Assisi believed in this interconnection with all living things as well, too. I believe that everything that is imbued with the breath of the divine has that vibration frequency within them. And then if we can tune into that, we can really, make this place a better place for everybody, of all living things. And I think that's what's wrong with the human race right now, is that nobody's on the same frequency.
No, I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you with that. And gentlemen, we got less than a minute here before we are going to go to break. So, I got to tell you, it's great to have you back on, Guru. It really is great. And Brian, I'm not trying to exclude you from the Crypto Guru love in here. Not trying to exclude you. But we got 2 more hours where we're going to go hardcore on a lot of cryptid stuff. We got to get into the cryptids. And Ron, you promised me, because, these vicious listeners here, they're going to be asking about gnomes. So we're going to need a gnome update, because they are vicious, they are rude, and I know they're going to start posting pictures at any time, which is a horrific thing for me. But that's okay.
I'll tell you what, I have actually a story that has never been put on the radio before, to give you, that happened in Western Pennsylvania over the summer, so it's less than a year old. And then I think, though, before we do that, I think that we have a dogman case that quite possibly could have happened here less than 24 hours ago in the United States, so why don't we get into that?
Absolutely. Sounds great. Bryan Bowden and the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. Yes, the guru is back. It just feels so good to say that. They'll be here for the entire distance on this Friday night before we head into the weekend to find our Zen and our Chi. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with more SOR right after this.
Hey, space travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our Advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio. Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night and Sunday, the weekend crew comes on in, where we have Joe Roop coming in for Spaced Out Saturdays and Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Sundays. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Yes, good to say that. Our website is back up and running. And don't forget, we also have a GoFundMe account going right now. It's gofundme.com/We Own the Night. Once again, GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. We are raising money to rebuild the Space Out Radio studio where we can get new equipment in here and prepare for terrestrial radio. That is our goal. We need your help. So if you don't mind, I know it's Christmas time and a week and a half before Christmas, and I know things are tight, but if you got $1, we'd love to have it, just to help us out. If you can't afford it, spreading the word means just as much. So thank you to our Space Out Radio listeners who are helping out. We are live on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. You can also listen to us on the Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Intracerebroventricular. Intracerebroventricular is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, we're all over social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well, much like Canadian Joe. Gotta love it, Canadian Joe. Thank you so much. Oh, that makes me laugh. You can also find us on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can join us for live chat in the SOR Space Travelers group. And we're on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. That's where our archives are. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Read up on the Encounter online. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Watch great videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV and so much more. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, for the first time since early this year, we welcome back, gratuitously, the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, and his co-host from Inside the Goblin Universe, Bryan Bowden. Gentlemen, we're talking cryptids all night. What's going on?
Well, luckily, coming on here tonight, there's a lot of stuff going on, which is, of course, my favorite thing to talk about is these things that go bump in the night. And I love everything Bigfoot, and I love everything Dogman. And as it happened here just today, there was the unfortunate death of a 22-year-old woman in a place called Goochland, Virginia, which is kind of in a south-central area of the state of Virginia, a very wooded area. But this is coming straight to Spaced Out Radio, less than 24 hours old. So I think this would be, something that we could talk about. But the woman was in exceedingly good health. I mean, she was 22 years old. She was athletic and fit. And the police somebody had come upon her body out of the woods, and the police had come to the scene. They called the scene a grisly scene, grisly as in terrifying and not bear-like. But the police are ruling this that her dogs had mauled her. Now, in speaking to other people, The veterinarian in question that had to come and tranquilize the dogs in order to get them away from the body claimed that the dogs were actually guarding her body, and people that had her friends said that she actually raised these dogs from puppies. They were hand-fed dogs. They were pit bulls, of course, but it doesn't look like this may have been a typical mauling incident. First of all, to be mauled by two of your dogs while you're out on a walk is an extremely rare thing, and actually, to my knowledge, I cannot recollect one time that this has ever happened. But she was in a wooded area. The body is mauled almost beyond recognition. They did not expect that this was homicide, so they don't expect that any human being had anything to do with this. But it looked as if her body was torn to pieces. It seems to me that the dogs are going to be a great alibi here. But I think that you are looking at something cryptid in this encounter. Like, again, I said, less than 24 hours old, happened in a wooded section of Virginia, and I think this is something that we can talk about while it's still hot off the press.
Bryan, what's your take on that as being a researcher of Dogman?
Well, it's very similar to something that happens during the summer in the southwest portion of the United States on tribal land. There was an older woman that was mauled to bits, and that was just one person. There was a child that was mauled. Forgot the name of the actual tribe. They're attributing it to the wild dog pack. However, there are people that are calling it a Wendigo. And if you look at what a Wendigo is in comparison to what a Dogman is, basically the same creature. Something that's a transformer. And this has a really good feeling. What Ron just brought up right now, I'm going to go more Dogman than dogs. I've had dogs my entire life. My last dog was a bull terrier, English bull terrier. If you're in Canada, it was a Don Cherry dog. I don't want to offend anybody who watches hockey because I'm a hockey guy, but that's the type of dog I had.
I do have to interrupt you there because that's the second time in as many nights that Don Cherry has been brought up on this show.
Well, it's really fun. Every time I used to go into Canada, I used to go into the east side, eastern area in St. Andrews. I'd bring my dog, and all I heard was Don Cherry dog. So I should have just named him Domi after Ty Domi, but I didn't. So, but I know dogs and I know pit bulls. My family's been involved in dog shows and show dogs and for years. Pit bulls do have a tendency after about 3 years, there's something that goes wrong with these dogs, not all of them, and they can snap. I highly doubt that this woman was attacked by her own dogs. Highly doubt it. And the fact that, yes, they're animals and they can kill and destroy, but this woman apparently was ripped to shreds. This has a Dogman written all over it. I have to investigate a little bit more on the actual location of where in Virginia, because as we get closer to the West Virginia / Kentucky area, the stakes just went up higher. And probably a couple hours from West Virginia is probably what you're looking at right there, but definitely within that Appalachian Plateau type of area. Yeah, I would like to know. I mean, if I was investigating, I would talk to some of her friends in the area. Have there any been reports of this type of creature or certain sounds or growling? Have there been reports or sightings in the area where she was hiking? Most people don't want to talk about this stuff. They don't. Let me tell you, when I first discovered, and Dogman is the hot topic for the most part on cryptid side right now. One of the hot topics. It's kind of very far-fetched. I remember American Werewolf in London. Love it. I grew up on that stuff. But to see something that's about a 9 to 10 foot werewolf or lichen, I would think you're crazy. However, there are plenty of people in higher up situations that have more to lose than gain that have discussed this cryptid and creature publicly under anonymity. And the evidence is there. I've seen the claws. I've seen pictures of it. They're where we have friends in upstate New York there's a pathway that will take you to Bigfoot, and then there's another pathway on this preserve that will take you to a dogman. They're there. I've seen pictures of these things. I haven't physically seen one. I may have actually marked territory about 100 yards, well, less than 100 yards, in front of an actual dogman. But I can talk about that in a little bit. But this has dogman written all over it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the idea of a cover-up as well, too. We think of one of the first cases of what we would call a dogman encounter was a place called Land Between the Lakes, which is on the Kentucky-Tennessee border. And this was a flood control area where the government came in, flooded the area out, and it became a recreational site. And as the story goes, there was a bow hunter that was in a tree stand that was horribly mauled and killed by an unknown animal. And then not too long after that incident, there was a family that was camping in their camper, their little motorhome, and whenever the authorities came upon it, there was a man, a husband and wife, and children, and they found the husband and the wife torn to pieces, one of the children dead within inside the camper, and then an infant child dead a few hundred yards away, stuck up in the trees. And this was a supposedly a complete cover-up. And what would the authorities do if they would come out and say that there is a dogman stalking rural Virginia? I mean, I think that we need to look at this quite logically to think how the human would react to such a thing. I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch of the imagination, but in these regards, it's not so much conspiracy as it is crowd control. I do think the government knows about the existence of things like Dogman and Bigfoot and, UFO contact and such because that's what the government's there to do. I think that they know things and they'll just, trickle down this information as it comes. Now, one caveat to this is that with the whole idea now in the United States of the net neutrality issue, what now will trickle down to the public could be even less, and so that's another issue we could talk about sometime. But the idea of being able to cover things up now becomes exponentially greater whenever you have a governmental control of your internet, and plus people feeding you the news as if you were an infant and you couldn't swallow what really happened.
Were any of the dogs reported to have any injuries?
No, there was 2 dogs. There was only 2 dogs, and the descriptions of them were protective and frightened. Now, the idea goes back to the idea.
That's what gets me. The frightening of a dog gets me because dogs know. I mean, if you research a dogman story after dogman story after dogman story, 9 out of 10 times, those dogs are hiding someplace.
That's right. And it happens with Bigfoot stories as well, too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, 100% with a dogman. There was a case down in Virginia, southern Virginia. Family was having a problem on their property. This young kid was taken with their uncles, and they put him in the center of the house in the bathroom with the dogs because they knew the dogs would just jet. And basically, they trapped and killed the dogman because the dogman was coming on the property, harassing the people, threatening the people. So they literally trapped this thing. This is the first time and last time he ever saw it. He didn't think it was real, but he physically touched it after they had it on the ground. They decapitated this thing. Used bear traps, shotgun round after shotgun round. But the dogs wanted nothing to do with this. And for a dog not to be curious about something, it is pure fear. And when a dog's afraid, I think he should just run at that point.
Well, I think this all comes back to full circle what you talked about infrasound as well. The infrasound probably worked. Well, looking at the animal kingdom, we know that infrasound works quite effectively on other animals. And I think one of the best biological adaptations that a large animal could have would be that to evolve infrasound, because you're able to be territorial without being confrontational. You can cover a great area. Now, it's very possible that the dog sensed this infrasound and refused to go any further, but the owner might have been coaxing or what have you, you know. But also, these kind of animals could come into an area and basically lay down a blast of infrasound to get all the things out of there that don't want to be there, and then they saw the woman that was still standing her ground not being able to perceive this infrasound as a threat, and then the threat was just simply eliminated at that point. That's a very possible scenario as well. But again, the dogs, you know, the idea of a dog mauling somebody, I mean, you see it happen with children. You see it happen every now and then with dogs that are almost in a manic effect whenever somebody comes onto their property. But I have never heard of a dog mauling an owner whenever they're out on a walk. It makes no sense to me.
There's no reason for it, because unless the dog is going for a treat or a ball or whatever, and that's an accidental thing. But playing off of what Ron was just saying about not only the infrasound, when dogs know, it's kind of an instinctive thing. When you're the alpha and you're that large, there's a smell about you. Your scent glands, I'm sure they're not clean when they urinate on, and it gets on their coat. And all reports of these things stink, actually. So dogs smell this long before this creature makes a sound. They know something big's coming, and they just jet. They want to have nothing to do with this. And nothing will get me unnerved as much as a dog being upset. I had my brother's Rottweiler, 150 pounds. Alarm went off my grandparents' place, and we went in, and I kind of got a little weird feeling, don't go upstairs. No one should have been in the house. That dog wouldn't go anywhere near it. I tried to pull him up. He backed right out. And when that 150-pound Rottweiler wants to get out of there, that's a wise choice. Get out of that house. So these dogs know something. Unfortunately, these dogs are probably going to be destroyed, and they're going to destroy whatever evidence is there. But it would be worthwhile to look and see if there are any military operations taking place in the town or nearby in the next couple of days or weeks, because there are reports of military very well knowing about dogmen, and when they have a situation where these things get out of hand, they go in and they take it out. They send in a team.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Now, I've dealt with a lot of people in regards to First Nation understanding of the dogman, and they were seen as sometimes protective spirits, tutelary spirits, entities that would hang around graveyards, very similar to the way the Egyptians viewed Anubis. But now we're talking about the dogmen of the 21st century. We're talking about the dogmen of the white man's world. And as Brian pointed out earlier, the Wendigo, this creature, this cannibalistic creature, this shape-shifting creature, you were probably closer to hitting the mark there with this what we call dogman. Now, another question I have for everybody here, including the listeners, is the dogman that we talk about, is it truly a werewolf? Is it something that is capable of transforming into a human shape, or are we dealing with a flesh and blood creature, kind of like a Bigfoot, where it is constantly in that particular shape? Or are we dealing with an interdimensional animal, which is the reason why we can find, no consistent, signs of the creature after a particular event. So these are things to mull over as well.
I know Butch Witkowski has said a few times on this show that when looking for the bipedal canine that seems to be a little bit bigger than Dogman, he likes to call it some sort of werewolf or something along those lines. But he was saying that where they were looking for evidence one time in this forest, he goes, out of nowhere, this gentleman popped out of camouflage, and it wasn't even during a hunting season. He thought the guy was military, and the guy's just like, oh, I'm just hunting. And and Butch, being a former cop, knows it wasn't hunting season, but he believes, like you said, Brian, that there is some kind of direct correlation between the dogman, these bipedal canines, and the military. Do you lean that way too?
Yeah, I 100%. There's way too many reports. There's way too many military reports, because you got to understand something. In the U.S. alone, we have a ton of military bases, and they're doing all these different type of exercises in different type of terrain. But a lot of these bases and a lot of people that I've heard from that are former military personnel in different divisions, be it a normal soldier as well as special forces, they do a lot of training, and they do a lot of night training. And there's a group, I don't know the name of the group, I don't know where they're coming from, but when there are incidents around this country, they send in, you'll get a dogman incident or a scene, a grizzly scene, and then the next thing you know, helicopters are coming in, black helicopters in the middle of the night, dropping people in. It's a very swift, quick operation. We're talking about a lot of men. They go through the forest, they take care of whatever the problem is, and I think that puts the other dogmen on notice, like, you got to cut it out. And they kind of settle down for a bit. I think this is one cryptid that I think is highly aware of human beings and how they operate and what they can and cannot get away with. One of the very interesting features of the dogmen locally in U.S. based is their ability, for some reason, they like to play games. I don't know if they know exactly what they are, and they like to scare the hell out of people, but there are many reports. What they'll do is they'll be nearby a property, and they kind of peek in the property, and in the middle of the night, they'll knock on your door, or they'll ring your doorbell. If you have two different doors, a front door and a back door, there'll be two of them. And I'm going to state this straight up. If you see one dogman, watch your six. Watch your back and watch your sides, because there's always going to be another one right near them. They do not hunt alone. They do not go any place alone. There's going to be more than one of them. And they're opportunists. They will distract you, and while the other one's sneaking around to go get you.
And Brian, now when we were on break, you told a story about, about the idea of these things possibly tracking you. You got to share that.
Well, I've gotten a lot of reports from people who they're in an area and they're about 200-300 miles away from their home, and they have an encounter with a dogman upstate New York, and it scares the hell out of them, or they may be shot at it, which is a big mistake in my book if you don't know what you're doing. And these things like to go and get revenge. I don't know what the rhyme or reason of, but a normal wolf roughly has a 150-mile radius of tracking for prey. That's where they hunt, 150 miles. These things literally have tracked people 400 to 500 miles away from the spot where they initially had an encounter. And that's going through interstates, traveling 75 miles per hour. I mean, it's an incredible ability of this creature. And they do go to your house. They will knock on your door. I mean, I've had experiences with things. I haven't seen them. I've had a couple dogmen kind of experiences, and that's something that's always in the back of my mind. Will they be tracking me to my home? Would be kind of interesting because I live in an apartment. It should be good on the video on the front door, but they do have the ability to track. And this one woman had an experience. This thing tracked her from upstate New York to lower, just outside the city, and literally was bothering her by knocking on her door at 3 o'clock in the morning, growling through a window.
See, so is it tracking it, or is it attachment, almost as what you would use in the ghostly jargon? What's going on here is something now that defies scientific logic, and that's okay because we're dealing with the paranormal. But what's going on? What makes the dogman, even though it's the new kid on the block, what makes it so utterly fascinating is because it really does transcend the rules of physics and what we know about an animal. In many cases, it acts like a very true flesh and blood animal. But the idea of it following an eyewitness back to back to their home, back to their domicile, just to toy with them as if it was, prey, if it was a cat and mouse type of game. That's very unnerving, and also you're giving this creature not only, you're not giving it animal intelligence anymore, you're giving it almost an omniscient type of intelligence. So are we dealing with something that is, interdimensional, extraterrestrial? I'm not sure. And that's why I think that the Dogman is such a fascinating creature.
Yep. It's really interesting, Dave. This creature, I watched Star Trek, and we had the collective, the Borg. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, where everybody, one Borg knows what the other Borg is doing. It's this one, giant clan. And I think of the Dogman more so as a clan and having that kind of ability. I don't know how they're doing it or why they're doing it, because we don't have these physical creatures to actually study or ask questions or interpret. So a lot of this stuff is just through hearing it over and over again, you kind of have a hypothesis going on. But maybe there is a collective there. Maybe there's a common conscious, and they do have a spirituality about them where if you hit one, the other one knows about it.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, almost like a psychic uplink, as if they were all working. It's. I mean, that's something to think about. But in the SOR Space Travelers chat room, if I could, Robin St. Charles just actually posed a question. And the question is, have you heard about hellhounds as protectors of graveyards? Now, Mr. St. Charles, I do believe that one of the last shows that I had done before I went on a hiatus, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, is we did an entire 3 hours on hellhounds, if you can remember, because that was your daughter Peyton's request.
I remember that, yes, because she wanted me to ask you about that.
That's right. So the idea of a hellhound, and also I do make the link between hellhounds and dogmen and werewolves in my book on Dogman, Tracking the Werewolf Through History, that you can buy now at Amazon.com. So that little plug aside, of course, when we look at the idea of the Dogman and its association with Native American mounds, like in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and even in upstate New York, I spoke to somebody that told me, as if he were speaking to me the gospel truth, that there is indeed a wolf entity that protects a Native American graveyard up in upstate New York. He had no qualms with telling me the story whatsoever. Also, as I stated earlier, the idea of Anubis in Egyptian theology or in cosmology, if you look at it from a cultural point of view, is that it was a protector of these liminal areas, that it was protecting the souls of the dead. It was the psychopompus. It was the way from which the mortal gets to the divine. So this idea of these dogmen creatures being around graveyards is very prominent. Now, whenever you look to the European idea of the hellhound, even a greatly Christian area of Europe, 1,000 years after the removal of paganism, you still see the idea of protective dog spirits around churches. There's actually one cathedral in Great Britain where under the altar they found the remains of a dog that stood 8 feet in height. And amazing. Now, it was on its hind legs, of course, not at the shoulder. That would be some sort of, huge creature. But they found an unusually large dog buried in a sacred space. Now, what is the reason behind that? If we would go to Italy, there was a case where there was a werewolf that was killing the locals until St. Francis of Assisi came in and bargained with the werewolf not to kill any humans anymore or kill the livestock, that the people of Gubbio, the little city that this werewolf was tormenting, they would offer him, food, and he wouldn't have to kill again. The werewolf made amends with the people of Gubbio, and it lived out its life until it died of natural causes. And then the people of Gubbio buried that wolf underneath its altar. Now, it seems kind of strange to me that the people in, Catholicism and in highly Christianized Italy at the time of St. Francis would take an animal and bury it under their altar which, kind of leads me to believe that this may have not have always been a wolf. It may indeed have been a person, a baptized person that had transformed, and, it was just fitting that at the death, the body was interred as if it was a human being. Something to think on. Of course, this is not going to be published in National Geographic or anything like that, but, from a historical point of view and from a cultural point of view, I like to look at all angles. And these are just some of the stories about hellhounds that really do not make any kind of logical sense, but we do have physical evidence of these things happening from the burials that we're uncovering.
Question coming from Twitter from Canadian Joe. He's saying, guys, does using the term dogman instead of werewolf make the possibility of its existence more acceptable?
Oh, you know what? That's a great. No, seriously. In all my books as well, I deal with the linguistic points of view as well too. Because if you would tell someone that there's a werewolf out there, they're going to laugh at you because of all the negative connotations and all the Hollywood that goes into that. But if you say dogman, that's something different. And Canadian Joe, that's the other reason why I named my book on dogman and not on werewolf, is because of that. So this is actually a great question. I think dogman has this idea of, this creature that is beast, but also has this remnant of humanity in it. And that makes it very, very fascinating. And I think one of the reasons why we're always fascinated about Bigfoot as well is this is a bipedal creature that acts and looks remarkably like us, except it's our wild version. It's our alter ego, if you will. So the things about anything that has the word man in it or has some sort of human reference brings it closer to home and makes us want to delve deeper into those dark spaces that where it lives, because we see our reflection in these creatures, don't we? If it walks upright and it looks remarkably anthropomorphic, we see ourselves in it, so we're more apt to investigate deeper into those shadowy places. So that's a great question. I think that dogman does indeed add more of a credence to this creature than calling it a werewolf.
Question from Joe here, and Brian will get your take on this. He is saying, is it possible that there is such a thing as Catman out there? People might think they're just a lynx or a puma or mountain lion or wolf, but is it possible that there's one out there?
In the world of the cryptid, anything is possible. Look at the Minotaur, right? So that's possible, man, bull. But I haven't heard of reports of a Catman. I've heard of reports of very large cats. It's something that you'd have to really do a little bit more research on. That's not on the radar. Does it make it not true? No. Until something like that comes forward. If you go into the native or indigenous people of the land, there's talks of many type of shape-shifting type of creatures, from man to cat, from man to hawk, from man to dog, to man to whatever, a wendigo, whatever that is. So I haven't come across it yet, but if I do, I will actually come back onto Spaced Out Radio and I will discuss Catman if they're out there.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's actually a very good idea. And again, let me just throw this out here. The guy that wrote On Dogman, Tracking the Werewolf Through History, Ron Murphy, I actually did point on this as well, too, because cultures around the world have different things that people change into. For instance, in Africa, there are were-hyenas. And indeed, in parts of Asia, there are were-cats, were-panthers. I include in my book a cave painting from about 35,000 years ago of a man in the act of transforming into a deer. So the idea that a person is capable of transforming into an animal is quite ancient. It resides within our DNA. What is the reason for that? Why do we have this affinity towards the idea of transformation? Now, there's a couple ways to look at this. Is it shamanic? Is it a way for Is it a religious experience? Is it a mind experience where you're transcending your humanity and trying to commune with nature? That's very possible. If that is the case, that is the reason why it's with us today, is because it meant something very powerful to us. It was sympathetic magic. It was the way we were able to get through in the world. And if you would study Jungian psychology, it becomes part of our collective unconscious because it means something to us as humanity as we left the primordial forest and move into civilization. Very possible. The second step is it physically possible for a person to change into an animal? Now, we focus on the werewolf because, movies have been made about the werewolf. But keep in mind, too, there have been movies like Cat People that was about people transforming into cats. So the idea that people can transform into an animal is ancient and ongoing. There was a time in India where there not very far in the past, only about a decade ago, that people were searching for a man-ape. So we would talk about Bigfoot, but they saw it as a person that transformed into this ape-like creature. So it all depends upon which stance you take. Now, one of your listeners asked point blank to Brian and I, and I'm sure to you too, Dave, that do we believe that dogmen exist? I personally have had enough tantalizing encounters to say unequivocally that there is something out there that we call dogmen. Now, that's my take on the thing. I know that that's not being very scientific or being very logical, but the times that I've experienced something in relation to the dogman, I cannot describe it in any other way to say that I was very close to what we would call a dogman to this day. Now, what about you guys?
Well, the problem with dogmen is, and we're getting into a gray area, there's different types of dogmen that have been reported. So when we get into, there's a hyena type of dogman. I like to call them lichens for the most part. Dogman is the common name now. It's the current name. I don't really like to use werewolves because I think it's more goes towards the fantasy side of something. This seems to be a reported actual physical creature, so lichen or dogman is a little bit better. But there's something called the dogman type 3, and there's been reports where there's always been an interaction between the dogman on one side of the fence and the Bigfoot. And basically they both coexist, and every once in a while something happens and it becomes a battle or a mating. A dogman type 3 is supposedly a Bigfoot and dogman copulating and producing offspring. It has a feature that has Bigfoot qualities to it, but has certain snout action on it that gives it a dogman quality. Again, it's a very interesting take on what's going on. When we were talking about the cat man, I'm kind of reminded, and Ron, you mentioned it with the painting in China. If you go up to the Nordic area there, a lot of the Vikings there would skin their animals and put them, like, become the animal by putting the skin on their bodies before going into battle. So you don't know if you're facing a bear or a human being. So maybe some of these reports way back when are actually human beings wearing the skins of these creatures or a big cat, and someone sees it in the woods and thinks, oh my God, that's the cat and the man together. But that's something that's going to take a lot of research to go through, and I'm sure, Ron, that'll be a book right there for you.
Oh, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I cover that all in chapter 1 of my book. So thanks a lot, guys.
He is thorough. He is probably one of the thoroughest guys I've ever met.
That was smooth. That was smooth.
It was very smooth.
Yeah,
I actually have I have pictures. I'm going to post them to you. I'm on the Facebook side of the chat room, and I'll try to get to Twitter. But we came upon a den, and there were actually what looks like an extremely large creature in there and pups. Very dogman quality to it. We have some video, and I'm part of the Bronxville Paranormal Society, and you can see the video on that website, but also on the YouTube side of it. And you can make your own decision. We always post it. We're not trying to sell you anything, so we just post what we've seen. And if you can debunk it or we'll reinvestigate it. So just so you know, I'm going to throw some pictures up for your audience, Dave.
Yeah, that absolutely works. And you had asked if I believed in Dogman. As someone who has seen two Sasquatch, and I think the amount of quality people who are investigating these Dogman or lichen types sightings, people with credibility, I think there is something to it. I hope I never run into a Dogman. That would scare the bejesus out of me. But I do believe they are there. I want to get to a question from Bob here in the SOR Space Travelers. And Ron, we'll start with you as Brian is posting those pictures.
Sure.
Bob is asking, Ron, what do you know about this guy who claims to have a Bigfoot sawed up into parts and kept in his freezer for the past 65 years? Are you buying this story?
I'm not buying that story at all. Bigfoot is becoming a very hot commodity. People, all you have to do is turn on your television, your TV guide or whatever, and find out that there are now entire networks based upon nothing but paranormal stories, a lot of haunted stories, and people are trying to get their little 15 minutes by attaching onto that. And that's all that this is. Now, I am glad that you queried that to me, because a movie has just been released today on Netflix, and it's called Discovering Bigfoot. I don't know if any of your listeners happen to see it, Dave. I'm not sure if you saw it. Brian, I don't think you had a chance to see it yet, have you?
No, not yet.
Yeah. So in preparation for my talk here, my appearance here tonight, I sat through an hour and a half of Todd Standing's take on Bigfoot. Now, Todd Standing is one of these people that he has been accused of faking things. He's the one that has the infamous photographs of Bigfoot that you can see the eye blinking every now and then. Very well manicured hair on these creatures, but you can only see the head. You never see a full body. So it's very likely that these are animatronic heads or these are somehow photoshopped, what have you. But to me, they look very well done, but they also look extremely fake as well. Okay, so that being said, he brings out this movie, and he brings Dr. John Bindernagel and Dr. Jeff Meldrum into this movie with him. So he has actual, honest-to-goodness PhDs with him in the field looking for these creatures. Now, if Standing is one of these people that will badger a witness and lead them to the point that the witness will start testifying for Todd, even though they didn't mean to do that. Actually, an attorney should have came in a couple times and objected and say, I object, because he's making these PhD guys admitting that they saw Bigfoot out in the woods whenever, in fact, if you would watch it from the time of it happening, they wouldn't say anything like this. So watching this program, you start seeing why people are coming to the forefront and trying to sell their stories. It's because it makes money. Now, this happened not very far, I don't think, Dave, from where you are, as a matter of fact. But anyways, this is supposed to be a very secluded area where these sightings were happening. That they were supposedly a couple hundred miles away from the nearest person. And they were habituated Bigfoot. They were coming in and taking apples as gifts, and they were coming quite close to the camp and everything, where he could take pictures. Now, what was interesting, and I'm not sure if he thought this through, but they set up a drone to triangulate the area to where these sightings were supposed to be happening, because, of course, these things were coming into camp and everything. So as the drone lifts up, you can see that there is an environmental protection barrier that was laid down by a forest company not to allow any seepage into this creek that was there. And then it goes up a little bit more, and then you can see this logging road that comes into the area. And not only is it a primitive logging road, but it also has a street sign next to the road. So this is a used road. So instead of it being 100 miles away from the nearest person, you're probably talking maybe about 20 or 30 miles away from probably a major highway. So it seems that Mr. Standing has put out a complete movie, an hour-and-a-half movie, and sold it to a network like Netflix to make money off of something which is a complete hoax. And I think that any of your listeners, please watch this show intelligently, because there are a lot of P.T. Barnum people out there, and there's so many people that are listening to Andy Warhol and getting their 15 minutes of fame right now, and they're doing no kind of true exploration, and it's nothing but hoaxes and misinformation, and that's what makes serious researchers like ourselves here look bad to the public at large, because they think and they scrutinize us and throw us into the same pack of all these other charlatans.
Well, Todd Standing did make some news here about a month ago before his documentary came out, where he actually took the Alberta and British Columbia provincial governments to court, suing them for not protecting Sasquatch.
That's right. That's right. That's actually included in the movie as well, too, which was interesting. Now, so what happened with that particular case?
As far as I know, it hasn't gone anywhere yet.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the idea of protecting an animal, I mean, because I think that they did that in Scotland as well, too, for Loch Ness. There is a bit of novelty to it, but I personally think it's a good idea. That would save a lot of people from going out in the woods and just start shooting things up. I think that, even these creatures aren't scientifically categorized. I think protection is always a good thing. I'm not one of those kind of people that want to go out in the woods and kill anything anyways, but I think that that's one of the few things that he has going for him, to at least open up the dialogue. Now, the problem I have with him is he's just so unbelievably heavy-handed in his approach to this. He makes himself as a Navy SEAL. He trained with Army snipers. He's expert in camouflage and in Native American lore and everything. And he just seems to me to be one of these people that really grate on me. And I urge anybody, please watch this movie. Again, Discovering Bigfoot. It is out on Netflix, and I believe that's probably the only place where you can find it. And it is something, if you would look at it from a very skeptical point of view or an open-minded point of view, just watch it and let's have an open dialogue about it.
I want to get to some more questions here, guys, from our audience, because we are way behind on those right now. On Spreaker, Chris is asking, do you believe Wendigos are protective spirits, Brian?
No, they're not protective spirits. They're actually the opposite of that. They're out to do harm. When a Wendigo is shapeshifter, it's based off of you have to commit the ultimate crimes against humanity to get to that Wendigo stage, and it's an insatiable position to be in. These cryptids have this thirst for constant flesh and eating. So as a protective spirit, no way. More of something pure evil and dark and negative. When they come about, the tribesmen will not talk about it. The shamans, they don't even want to mention the name Wendigo, because it feels that it brings the curse to them, and it may bring the actual Wendigo to their property. So definitely not a protective spirit.
All right, let's get to another question. Ron, we'll start with you on this one. This one comes from Jägermeister in Edmonton. Do either of you think Bigfoot could be the missing link?
Question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So we're talking about, and it's also a loaded question kind of in a way, because the missing link would be between ape and human, which I don't think that we necessarily have to make that jump. What would probably make better sense is that would it be a dead end in the chain of evolution from a common ape-like ancestor. So if that's the case, then we're looking at something like Gigantopithecus blackeye, something along that way of thinking. Now, I personally do not believe that this is a relic hominid in any case. I think that what we're dealing with is something completely different. But there are creatures, tantalizing creatures in the fossil record that would look a great deal like Bigfoot if you would flesh and blood it and all that good stuff. But I personally do not think that it's a missing link, or really, from that matter, even comparably on the same par of evolution that we're in. I think that we're dealing with something. Unfortunately, in this discussion, it doesn't merit very well, because I don't think that we're dealing with something that is ultimately a flesh and blood animal. I think we're talking about something that is interdimensional. That does not mean that it's not flesh and blood in that dimension, but it's just something that's right now in my research. I'm finding it very difficult to categorize Bigfoot as a flesh and blood animal.
See, that's what I believe. Go ahead, Brian. We got about 3 minutes before we got to go to break.
I 100% agree, and I never thought I would agree with him, because I figured this thing is flesh and blood, not necessarily human beings, along with the chain of the great apes. But after my experience with this creature in the woods, and it's traveling literally a mile in under a second, the only way I can explain this is that this thing is able to go into a different dimension and travel in that quickly. And I never thought I would ever say that, but more and more today, it's leading in that direction.
That's right. And also the conversations that I've had with Dave as well, with his experiencer accounts, the idea of the cloaking that you've actually seen really is, there's no way to pinpoint that and say this is an animal that we can understand by our physics. There's something else going on.
I would totally agree with you on that. And I have said many a times on this show, even though I do not have proof, my personal belief is there is something supernatural going on with Sasquatch. I can only go by my personal experience, where I saw the cloaking and then a few seconds later heard the absolutely most horrific roar I have ever heard. And there were 3 other witnesses with me who heard that. So I don't buy the fact that we are dealing with a Gigantopithecus or some sort of human remnant from the past. I do believe there is something supernatural to this. It's the reigning hide-and-seek champion for a reason. I can't go any further than that. Like, I've had people say, well, what's your proof? What proof do you have on this? The only thing that I can go on personally is my personal experience. And I really believe that Sasquatch has something special to it. I don't know why, I don't know how, but there are reasons why people can go into an area like a gifting site, have activity, and there's no footprints from a 900-pound creature or a 600-pound creature. There's some differences there. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on. We are going to go to our final break of the night. Our guest tonight, Bryan Bowden, and the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. Yes, he is back. We got to get him back on schedule for 2018. This once ever in a blue moon just doesn't work for me. I need more guru. And we're going to bring him back. That's for sure. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Brian and the Guru are going the distance. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
There's stories, then there's the truth. do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on spacedoutradio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you're seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at spacedoutradio.com.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night and Sunday, the weekend crew heads into the cabin while I go to find my Zen and my Chi in the snowy wilderness here of central British Columbia. Joe Roop is in with Spaced Out Saturdays, and then Elizabeth Anglin on Sunday for Spaced Out Sundays Cosmic Passport. Both shows get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us as well. We're also live on the Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Intracerebroventricular. Intracerebroventricular is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to connect live with us during the show as well. We are on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Give our page a like. You can also join us for live chat in the SOR Space Travelers group. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And you can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month, rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. You can watch videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV, and we got a news section as well called The Encounter Online. Give it a read. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. For the final time tonight, as this show is flying on by, we reintroduce to you the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. Yes, he is back, long-time listeners. The crypto guru is back, and he's brought with him his partner from Into the Goblin Universe, Bryan Bowden. Good to have you gentlemen here with us.
Hey, it's good to be here, my friend. Good to be here.
Great to be here.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to get to a question on Twitter that Canadian Joe actually asked in the first hour. And we've been talking about so many other things that this topic hasn't come up. And Guru, this is for you. And Canadian Joe is asking, have you ever investigated the flying humanoid phenomenon?
I did. Actually, I had the privilege and the pleasure of speaking at the Mothman Festival down in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a few months ago. Now, the idea of the flying humanoid is also a very ancient thing. The idea that there's something that's in a human form and is able to, defy gravity or what have you. And people are still witnessing these things today. One of the most famous ones, let's put it, one of the newest ones is from my neck of the woods in Butler, Pennsylvania, a little town called Shakura, where they're seeing what is called a gargoyle that is said to fly. It's a very interesting-looking creature. It looks as if it has some sort of winged attachments across its back that descend almost to its back of its. Well, let's see here. I guess we'll go down about as far as the Achilles tendon. It appears to be from the eyewitness sketches that I've seen, and some witnesses also report that it has a helmet or some sort of bony type of construction on its head. Now, one of the reasons why I'm not one of these people that come out and say that we've got ourselves a genuine gargoyle here is because the area in which it's being cited is a naturally rocky, cliffy area that overlooks a fairly sizable river. Now, is it possible that what these witnesses are seeing is somebody in a wingsuit? So I've yet to be able to completely rule that out, because a lot of these sketches that I'm seeing looks as if they are representing somebody standing in a wingsuit, and the head is always very aerodynamic, so it appears that it's wearing a helmet. So unless I can rule out there's a couple college kids around that are practicing a wingsuit on these particular cliffs, I cannot say definitively that what we're dealing with here is a flying humanoid like a gargoyle. But in the idea of the Mothman is still being cited. It goes back to the idea that there's something ominous out there, that it's kind of warning humanity that something is impending, something's going to happen. So yes, I've done research into that. I've not written extensively about flying humanoids, although Ken Gerhardt has a great book out. I believe it's actually called Flying Humanoids, if you want to check that out. But yeah, people are still seeing these critters out there.
Brian, do you think that there are flying humanoids out there?
Well, at one point, my mother-in-law was flying humanoid. But other than that, there's a lot of reports of these things. Mothman is a very interesting cryptid. And we don't know if you want to talk about something that's a warning cryptid or something spiritual, there's to be a debate about that. There's been reports of Owlman. There have been reports, they call them witches down below the border into South America, where a lot of witches were flying out of caves. I haven't seen anything yet. There's some intriguing evidence for it, but nothing that I've really sunk my teeth into at this point. But I think there's a possibility that they do exist.
Yeah,
I'd like to see one.
Yeah, that's right. I'd like to see one of those south of the border witches.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. I mean, part of this whole thing about investigating and researching paranormal and UFOs is when you gotta witness it. It's a humanistic, there's something about being a human. You have to physically see something, and sometimes that's a good thing because it validates what you're doing. And other times, depending on what cryptid you're seeing, it probably could be the biggest mistake you've ever met, because we'll go back to the dogman just for a split second. Most people who do have encounters with dogmen suffer from terrible nightmares for weeks on end. They don't sleep. So I'm wondering, these flying humanoids or these flying cryptids, that's something they would love to check out.
All right, gentlemen. The audience wants it. I'm going to build it up here, because they're not going to stop bugging me until you guys actually talk about any updates on Gnome stories.
I've been waiting for this, right? So I was at a conference in Western Pennsylvania over the summertime, and a man comes up to me and he says to me, I've had a sighting of, he called them brownies, which was, probably because it's part of the popular lexicon. There were some little brownies on Harry Potter, but brownies are classically household spirits, so he was misusing the term. But the reason why I call these things gnomes is, and you'll hear about this very soon, is that whenever the name was invented, the word gnome was used to refer to an intelligence which lived within the earth. So anything that's earth-related would have been a gnome. So this gentleman was up on the Chestnut Ridge hiking, and the first time I was ever on your program, my friend, was because I wrote this book called The Unexplained World of the Chestnut Ridge, and you interviewed me for that. But people still are coming up to me, giving me their stories about their encounters on the Chestnut Ridge, and there was a gentleman up there walking, and he said that he was coming through the woods, he was hiking, he came to this little glen, and there was these two brownies playing, and they had not seen him. And he described them as probably about 3 foot tall, and he said that they were playing as if they were doing some mischief, just kind of like rolling around and rustling and such, which is really a strange little detail that he was giving. And he couldn't remember them wearing any clothes. He was not certain if they had clothes on or not, but no clothes came to mind. It was just these small little creatures basically living their life in the woods without anybody seeing them. But within a couple of seconds, they immediately recognized that there was somebody around. And one of the little creatures, one of these little, what he called brownies, ran into the side of a hill. Now, he made it abundantly clear to me that there was no hole or breach or doorway in the side of the hill. The thing just completely ran into the side of the hill as if it was able to enter another dimension through that thing or become one with the hill or what have you. So that makes it, pretty close to what you would call a gnome. Now, what was fascinating about the other creature is it did not vanish or assume itself into the natural world. But what it did was go through an inventory of shapeshifts, which is an amazing detail, until it came upon the shape of a large flying bird, and then it was able to take off and flee the scene. Very, very interesting story. The first time I've ever spoken about this on any radio station, including Bryan and I's own radio station, but it is one of those little stories that has so many fascinating and unique details, you're really left kind of contemplating, what do I do with this information?
Bryan, are you a believer in the gnomes? Because those evil little bastards, I tell you, they scare me.
Yeah, don't get them wet and don't feed them after midnight. Actually, yes. Throughout history, there's been tons of stories about gnomes. I have this thing going on where we went on an investigation to Nuclear Lake, and our psychic was there, and I've actually seen things moving around that are about the gnome size. Very, very small, starting from tree to tree, mischievous, not the nicest things on the planet. They have what they want, and they're going to do what they want. And if you get between them and what they want, it could be very, very dangerous for you at that point. So, yeah, I do believe in them. I just haven't physically seen, I'm looking for the gnome that advertises for Travelocity, but I've just seen these creatures that are about, seriously. I mean, that's what, when you hear these stories and you're researching this stuff, you're thinking, like, Travelocity, a little guy with a red hat. That's probably one version of a gnome, but the gnomes that I'm talking about, I'm thinking, UK, England, and woodland-based creatures, or cryptids. Would you classify it as a cryptid or just a wee person? Don't know that yet. But, yeah, I think you could have these things around there.
Ron Chris is asking, do you think fairies and elves are quite similar to gnomes?
Oh, I do. Actually, whenever the word gnome came about, to put it within the fairy realm, it's part of the elementals, and fairies, of course, are part of the elementals as well. So if you would look at the pentacle, which is basically a symbol, has nothing to do with demonic influences or satanic worship or anything, but the pentacle came about as a way to portray the essential elements. So the element for earth was the realm of the gnome. That was the intelligent spirit that was named that controlled the earth. Now, for fire, you had such things as the idea of the salamander, which is a little bit different than the amphibian that we talk about. But the water had the undines, where you come about and getting mermaids out of. So the idea that a fairy is part of the elemental world is quite ancient. By the time you get up to the alchemist, and especially by Paracelsus, who really kind of put his thumbprint on this, the naming of these creatures, because the word gnome actually comes from Paracelsus himself, you do have this quite a litany of the creatures that reside in each of these elements, and these are the caretakers of these elements. So whenever you put a gnome out in your garden, you're hearkening back to the idea that there's a gnome that takes care of the land, and you're asking for his help in taking care of your garden, that kind of thing. But it's very interesting to think that as we evolve as human beings, we pay less respect to the natural world. And I think that's one of the things that are wrong. We talked about the idea of vibrations at the very beginning, and that is the whole point of the understanding that this world is full of things that we cannot quite comprehend, whether they're Dogman or Bigfoot, or if they are, what we would call fairies. There is more things than just the corporeal world. There's more things out there than just the tangible world. There are things out there that we simply cannot explain, but for some reason we know that they exist out there. We just know it as part of our instincts. There's these creatures out there. And fairies have always fascinated me. Actually, through my 40 years of research, I have now categorized what we would call Bigfoot into the world of the fairy, because it doesn't meet any kind of logic in regards to a biological animal. So I think that if we would keep our mind open and not think of these things as Tinkerbells off of Peter Pan, but as actual intelligent energies that reside in the world around us, we might actually start looking at, our place in the world and the world around us from a very different perspective.
Rachel,
good point, Ron.
Go ahead, Brian.
Good point. Well, I was, there's something that I've always believed in growing up, is that you see these maps, and on the maps, the traveling maps, they'll say gnome villages, fairy world or land, and in the ocean has these giant octopus or squid and mermaids. And this is not just in one location. This is in multiple locations around the globe. There seems to be weight behind this. People want to just attribute it to just some fantasy or Grimm's fairy tale. There is weight behind these stories. Going back in time, they didn't have TV. I don't think their imagination has wandered as much as you would think. So someone have had to experience these things to actually record it. And the only way they recorded it through a map, through a cave painting. So the idea of having gnomes and fairies and the wisps and even the Tinkerbell fairies, not to say like it's Peter Pan, but these light beings. It's just, it looks like giant lightning bugs.
Which I've experienced before. Brian and I talked about this. We've actually experienced things that really there's no other way to describe it. Lightning bug is the closest you can get to a comparison, but it almost looks like a living, breathing LED light.
And on top of those lightning bug LED light fairies, there are gigantic, almost giant-like fairies that are out there. I don't think the fairies are just a realm of 4 feet and lower. We had an experience where we were surrounded in the woods. Our psychic was on the phone, and she was describing things to a T, and that's where I saw the gnomes moving, and I saw some other woodland creatures moving, and light beings and light fairies. And then there's these large, it's kind of hard to describe, but it's when you see something, it's, there's a shape in the woods there, and it's just a little bit darker than the actual darkness of the woods. And she's explaining to us, these are all part of the multidimensionals, interdimensionals. And it goes from woodland creatures to fairies to large fairies and gnomes. They're observing you. and we were at a point where hopefully we were going to get a reaction, but other things took place, and we had to break from that scene. So these things are definitely, in my opinion, there is validity to them.
Right, you're entering their world. That's the thing. You're entering their world, and they're capable of interacting within their world. And I think that's what people really, truly need to understand, that we're not going that far afield here. We're talking about a very ancient belief. I mean, you can find the idea of fairy lore, documented in Greek documents and in Roman documents. But if you go back even further, the idea of animism, that all of nature has a life to it. I mean, that is found in all cultures around the entire world. And there is something to that. And if you look at places like Iceland now, the road authorities will stop building roads if it comes across what they would believe to be sacred sites to the elves, which are part of the fairy realm as well. So, I mean, there are places around the world that still have deference to these creatures. And I really think that if we would not have such a new agey approach to these kind of things and just a very practical approach, I'm a firm believer in the world as a living organism, and that we're all part of this organism. It's like a very it's a miraculous little terrarium in which we live. Everything is here. We can take care of ourselves, I believe. For every disease that we have out there, there is a remedy in nature if we have not already plowed it over or burnt it out. But I do believe that this idea of the Earth as a living organism, this Gaia theory, is something that I find quite, amendable. So I have no problem with it at all. And I do believe sincerely that there are fairy forces within the natural world as well, that we would call them, these intelligences of nature. I have no problem admitting to that.
And one of the things I just want to write off of what Ron just said recently, one of the things we use in our investigation when we do go on investigations in my group, and when I do it also when I'm out someplace, I cannot not be investigating. My wife it drives her nuts, especially if I bring out a K2 meter in the middle of a wedding or something, which I have. We use Tibetan singing bowls and different versions of them, different tones. And if I was going to suggest this to you right off the bat, when you go to your gifting site, Dave, there's an app on a phone you can get, and it mimics the Tibetan singing bowl perfectly. I think before you enter the woods or before you get to that gifting site, multiple times, play the Tibetan singing bowl. Bring that vibration of the woods up. They're going to pay attention to that in a positive way, not a negative way. It's almost as if it's like a key to unlocking the mystery of the Fae and of the cryptids, more so the Bigfoot side. I think that it does raise the vibration, and there's something to this whole Tibetan type of philosophy of one with nature and raising the level and resonating. Try it. I guarantee you're going to have some great results with that.
I think, and again, going back to the idea of vibrational interconnections and dynamics, and I think that we have to point out, nature didn't leave us. We are the ones that chose to leave nature. So we look at it as something that's a very negative thing, a very chaotic thing, but that's really not the way nature was intended to be.
All right, let's get to Rachel's question. She is asking, what is bigger, a gnome or a gremlin?
That is, size-wise, I'm not sure. Now, in the Middle Ages, fairies were spoken about as being slightly smaller than the average person. So we're probably talking about 4.5 feet tall. A gnome, wow. I've never been asked that question before. Let's say a gnome would be large enough or small enough, whichever way you look at it, to fit into a burrow, a hole of some kind. Now, the Smurfs, and a lot of people would make fun of this, but the Smurfs were actually based upon, folklore, mythology. And a Smurf is 3 apples high. So I would think that a gnome would probably be slightly bigger than a Smurf. I can't believe that I'm doing this right now. And then I think the idea of a gremlin, see, she did say gremlin, correct?
Yes, she did. Goblin. Goblin.
Goblin. Okay, goblin. Because I was just saying, gremlins is kind of like this technological thing that came out during World War II, and it was used as a ploy to talk about things that go wrong on planes and with electronics. So goblin. Okay, so Brian and I have the show called Inside the Goblin Universe, but we never really talked about a goblin because goblins are one of these kind of nebulous types of creatures that you really can't put a finger on, which is the reason why we called our show that, because you really can't get a grip of it. So if you would go out into the woods, I don't think that you would ever be able to find a goblin, a typical goblin. We use goblins to refer to all things that kind of go bump in the night. That's kind of like the archetypical goblin out there. So, I don't know if there is an actual goblin out there. I don't know. You have actually stumped me.
I think, when you look at the Harry Potter series, and I really don't want to go there, but your atypical goblin would look like the ones that are in there at Gringotts, the bank, similar to that, not very pleasing to the eye, very, very short, almost like a newborn baby. But, I'm sure there's a variety of them, depending on what location and, like anything else in this world, not everything is slender and 6 foot tall. So I think if you want to get an image of it, probably about, somebody maybe 2 feet tall, something to that effect.
Yeah, I think because what happens is all these kind of creatures that are reported around the world always have the same type of physicality to them. So if you would point out like a leprechaun, you're never going to talk about a leprechaun being 6 foot tall. They're always these small types of creatures. So there's something to be said about this. Why does every culture in the world have these kind of creatures existing in a certain dimension, in a certain size and everything? There's something to be said about that. Even the Native Americans of Canada and North America have an idea of these small creatures as well, too. So there is something to it. We can't just completely blow it off and say that these creatures don't exist out there, because for thousands of years there were cultures that most certainly believed that they were part of our natural world. And, as a researcher, I always take that into account first.
Robin is asking if either of you have ever studied the possibility of there being a goat man around, because there have been reports of that.
Yeah, Brian and I just talked about this not too long ago. Go ahead, Brian.
Yes. Yeah, no, there's definitely possibilities of a goat man. There's been actually several sightings of the goat man. I think down south, I believe, in the Kentucky/Appalachian area. It looks like it basically looks like a half man, half goat. Very much like the Minotaur, I believe.
The satyr.
For decades. Yeah, like very interesting. It doesn't seem to be doing anything. It's just there. It appears and then it doesn't. I don't think it's threatening. It appears and then disappears. It's just more of a shocking reports.
Right.
From what I've researched.
Yeah. So what do we do with something like that? Because people are seeing it. So what exactly do we do with these sightings? Because it doesn't make any kind of sense. Could it be, misidentification? Possibly. Are they seeing something out there like a satyr, something out there like out of Greek mythology that's just up out of the pages? It's another possibility. I've spoken with somebody that has sworn to me that they have seen a satyr out in the woods. I don't know. Again, we are dealing with a gray area, and my mind, of course, is opened up to all this kind of stuff, especially whenever it works or whenever it involves the world of the Fae. So I have no problem thinking that there might be a goat man or a satyr out there around there someplace. People talk about sheep squatch.
Yeah, sheep squatch is big, too. Getting back to goat man, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ron. Another problem you have is if you live in an area where there are people that happen to be Satan worshipers doing satanic practices, that is part of the garb. They will put it's almost like a mask. And you may be catching something that you shouldn't be catching. But most of the reports for this goat man is more docile than anything else. So I would think if it was more satanic related to some kind of a procedure or a ritual, you wouldn't want to have a contact on that end.
Yes. Again, something I don't want to mess with. There's a few things out there I don't want to mess with. I don't want to mess with these chimera type of creatures, these things that take on different forms, and like the dog man is a very scary thing to me. But, the sheep squatch and the goat man, these things are just such strange combinations that I'm thinking that, something's not been up to anything good.
Let's get to Christopher's question. He is asking, can fairies or elves then be protectors of people?
Oh, my goodness, there's been cases throughout history that they are. The idea of leaving gifts for your fairy friends is predominant throughout the Middle Ages up into the Renaissance. You wanted the fairy world to be at least respectful for you. Now, no matter if you had made peace with them or not, they were still going to be doing some malicious type of mischief. I mean, nothing terrible, but cases of opening up the barn door and letting the horse out, or tying your horse's mane into knots. These are all things that are very common. But if you have a household spirit that interacts with you, I mean, the idea of a cobbler, the idea of somebody doing your work while you're sleeping, that is, part of our fairy tales, but it's based upon very actual stories as well, too, of these household spirits doing your work for you or cleaning up the house. But yet you want to make friends, if you could, with these spirits, because just like people, you have your good fairies and you have your bad fairies, and sometimes they even congregate together. So they had names for these. So you have your fairies of light, or your dusky fairies, your dark type of fairies, or you have something called the Seelie Court, which means the blessed court, or the Unseelie Court, which of course is the unblessed court. So as you move further along, and as you move farther away from paganism, you have the blessed and the unblessed. So you are starting to deal with good and evil at this point. But whenever paganism was around, it was creatures of light and creatures of dark, and it was just better to stay to the light than to the dark.
Follow up from Chris, and maybe Brian, you could take this one. What is the best way to communicate with creatures in the fairy world?
I think offerings are pretty good. Burning sage, believe it or not, even though it is a protective device, you're creating an atmosphere to entice the positiveness to come in. And if you do, it depends on where you are, but you could probably welcome them with offerings and sage for the most part.
Ron, did you ever tell Brian about the fairy video I sent you from my daughter?
You know what? I do believe that I did. He and I have talked pretty extensively about my interest in fairies and his interest in fairies. But just to recap, to even the listeners that have not heard the story, although I'm sure some of your faithful listeners have, your daughter was simply, was it in her bedroom, correct?
It was.
And she was just doing typical teenage stuff. I think she was singing a song or something.
Yes.
And out of the corner, of the one corner, was... I mean, we just have to call it as we see it. There was a winged entity that basically flitted across her bedroom. Can you describe it any differently?
The zigzagging does not mark the fact that, it doesn't move naturally like a bug would. And I do want to say, like on that video, which Ron, you're really one of the few people who's actually seen it. You have to realize that in February, when that video was taken, it's minus 20, 25 degrees outside. Yep. There's 2 feet of snow. Bugs are not flying around in the Canadian tundra at that point. They're burrowed into the ground or trees or wherever, hibernating or just trying to stay warm. There are no bugs at that time. So that's what was captivating to me about it.
Yep. I mean, whatever was going on there was something that was out of the ordinary. And I liked the way that it was captured as well, because there seems to be an affinity towards everything in the paranormal field and children, because children aren't putting up any kind of, threats. They're very benign type of creatures. And the fairy world and children have always been pretty closely entwined. And I found it fascinating that it was simply a girl that was, doing goofy little girl stuff, and there was something that, happened to pay a visit.
Well, I agree. It still blows me away. I actually had a couple people ripping me about that because I wouldn't release it.
Yeah, and that's okay that you, because I think certain things are private moments. And I think that if I had a moment like that, I probably wouldn't release it either, because it was in your house, it was your child, there was nothing terrifying about it. It just seemed like a natural thing was happening. But also, talking about fairies, there's also people that will take advantage of our interest in fairies, though, Dave, and kind of use it to their benefits, which we've also fallen into that trap as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to go full circle at the very beginning, to look at it that way, too, there have been people that have been trying to take advantage of you and I for, 3 or 4 years now.
Mm-hmm. True enough.
Yep.
When you get to having your kids involved in something, and you have an incredible moment like you had, you kind of want to share it with more people, but you also want to keep that privacy between you and your family and their privacy. It's an intimate moment, that you captured, and it's a wonderful thing. I love the fact that when kids, and it's usually actually, getting back to the question, besides the sage, maybe some music or humming, especially with children, it seems to bring out the best in anything, as curiosity, or maybe it's a safe space. I would, yeah.
You know what, Brian? I learned my lesson earlier this year. I don't know if you saw it on my profile because we are Facebook friends or not, Guru. I think you did, where during the charity ghost hunt that I run at the local museum, one of our people taking the tour caught the most amazing ghost photo where it looks like there's an actual human figure standing on a stairwell. And
yes, I did that.
The number of people that actually came against that photo were very few, but like I laughed it off. I said, you could sure tell who is a fan of this show and who has never listened to it, because if they had listened to this show, they would know that I would never, ever put something fake out there. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. That's right.
I wouldn't put my show's credibility on the line. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Here's the problem we have today, and this is a big problem. The problem is that it doesn't matter. If you captured an absolute beautiful video or image of a UFO or Bigfoot or anything, it's Photoshopped. You get it? It doesn't matter. Nope, they Photoshopped that. But people have the time to spend to Photoshop in fairies and UFOs and cryptids and monsters. And you're right. People just, it just almost seems like everybody wants to be confrontational just to be confrontational. No one wants to propose, this is what I caught, this is what it is, I got nothing to sell you, I only give you the true information, let's discuss it. Instead, you get that kind of reaction, and that's the negative side of this whole entire field for the most part. That's why I don't think we use the term werewolf, because people just look at you like, yeah, he's crazy.
That's right. That's right.
Fans will be fans, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, talking about when we started here 2.5 hours ago, we're always walking a fine line, whether it's talking to, other researchers or followers of us, because we want to make our work accessible to as many people as humanly possible. But we also want to make it palpable. That's the other thing, too. Whenever you do a show of any kind, you have to have an entertainment quality to it. I mean, we could be sitting up here and sound like, we're on Downton Abbey with an English accent and talk for 3 hours about things that nobody wants to hear. We might sound very intelligent, but, if we're not entertaining anybody, nobody's going to listen. So that's the other thing about everything like this too, Dave, is how do you stay current and how do you stay entertaining at the same time? And the way we do it, the way Brian and I do it, and the way you do it, is we simply do not make up anything. We don't put ourselves out there for scrutiny of any kind. We don't, we won't fudge anything in order just to make a show up. And we're careful about who we have on the show as well, too. That's how we go about making a name for ourselves and keeping integrity within this business. I'm not out to, I'm out to talk to people about this kind of stuff. I'm not out to fake anything, and I'm not out to, any kind of misinformation. There's plenty of misinformation out there. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this mystery, just like everybody else is.
Let's get to Alan's question here. Alan is asking, could it be possible, guys, that mass consciousness or shamanic consciousness is either manifesting these creatures or opening a portal for their entrance onto our density?
Wow, that's a deep question for 2:42 in the morning. There's a lot of talk about that we're not really seeing a Bigfoot or a dogman or an owlman or whatever. It's we're manifesting it. And I like the idea of mass consciousness because we know through history that when you have many people praying time for a good event, it does help healing, and it may bring about that object you're looking for. I just don't know if there's any research on the relationship of mass consciousness and cryptids just yet. But I'm reminded what Rosemary Ellen Guiley said at one point: be careful what you wish for, which is a conscious, thought process, because you may actually get it and you don't know what you're going to get. But it's something definitely to look into, and follow the Gregorian chanting or the Tibetan monks praying. Let's see it. I mean, best way to do it is actually test it out. Get a couple of friends and focus.
Did we lose Brian there? Guru, are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you are. Brian, we lost you there for a quick second.
Oh, really? See, he was current on my end. He was current on my phone, and that's odd.
Oh, weird. Weird.
Hello?
There we go. It's them gnomes. See, this is what happens when you talk about the gnomes.
It comes back to haunt you every single time. Haven't you learned your lesson?
I know. Brian, we got you here. We got you back.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's the gnome. I'm going to leave him alone right now.
Yeah, let's just leave the gnomes alone. Trip is asking, in Cherryville, North Carolina, men get together on New Year's to shoot muskets to rid evil spirits and tree witches. Have either of you ever heard of this?
Not that particular celebration, but I know on February 1st, some places up in New England still open up the windows, open up the barn doors, let the evil spirits out and the good spirits in. So that especially whenever he's talked about shooting muskets, that obviously goes back to the day of a lot of settlers coming into the area, so they're bringing European customs with them to the New World. I find all those kind of quaint superstitions quite fascinating, and I think that they do have something to say, though, about the general beliefs of an agrarian society. The idea that this land has intelligences within it that need to be placated is part of who we are. So, I would love to witness that sometime. I've never heard about that particularly, but I do know that does exist in areas around the world even to this very day.
Is that also why we have bells on doors?
Well,
when the old time of opening up a bell on the door is to scare away, to shoo away some of the bad spirits that may be coming into the home.
Well, sure, and that's the same way why we have we do jack-o'-lantern carvings as well too. That's to scare away the evil spirits that are prowling about. So a lot of the things that we take for granted actually go back to the time when we believed that there were fairy creatures out there and they needed to be appeased or they could take their vengeance against us. That's absolutely correct.
Terrible. Some of these folklores that go on, though, how much stock do you actually put into them?
Well, as far as an historian goes, if a folklore is still with us to this day and people are still practicing it, there's some validity to it. There's a reason why it's continuing all the time. So when we talk about something like Groundhog Day, there's only maybe 130 years old or what have you. This is a very new belief. It's it's something that's kind of Americana at this point, even though it came from came from a European country. But it makes for good copy and good news. But we're talking about these little private things that happen, like the idea of Amish hex signs being still put on the outside of barns for a group of people that are highly Christian and gospel-based. They're still using these things to get rid of evil spirits rather than prayers or their own faith. So these are the kind of things that I put credence into. And I'm very fascinated why these things still connect with us to this very day.
Brian,
my voice is giving out at 2:47 in the morning.
I know, guys. Brian, do you buy into a lot of folklore?
Yes, I do. I think there's some history in it. You have to go back to your genetic line and what. There's a whole history about the chicken soup. I'm using that as an example. It's still part of folklore. That chicken soup helps cure your colds, your ails. What they didn't realize is there's a science behind it, but it's based on some kind of fact, repetitive fact. One of the things that there's a lot of this stuff that's kind of gone to the wayside for multiple reasons. One of which, if you want to look at Scottish traditions, when they used to build homes and castles, the first thing they would do before to bless the home is they'd literally get a black cat, they'd kill it, and they'd entomb it in the wall. And for some reason, the black cat entombed in the wall is what will protect you from any harm or evil going through. So I'm glad that practice has stopped. But there is something to it. Yes, it has stopped.
See, well, then I'm going to have to think
of in this country.
I just put down my business cards of the guy that will kill a black cat and put it inside your wall.
Oh, well, apparently in Western PA, they still do it. In the New York region, we kind of frown on those things.
I thought that would be
a superstition.
That's right. I thought that would be a cool little niche construction job I could do in the summertime.
Well, you can go with the other superstition. Did you know that most in New England, one of the things you would do when you had a wraparound porch is the ceiling of the wraparound porch, and I guarantee if you go to someone's house and you looked up and they haven't changed it much, it'll be blue. It'll be sky blue to be exact. And it's to trick ghosts or spirits that to go up to the sky or to avoid going into the home. It's a superstition that's been around for centuries. I don't know where it came from, but I always found it very intriguing why everybody's porch ceiling is supposed to be blue. Why you painted all the other walls? Why did you paint that? But it's to fool the spirits. So very interesting. It's very interesting little quirks. I mean, there's people that look at the bad luck stuff. Don't step under a ladder. In my case, with black cats crossing my path, I need to gamble because every time they do that, I win. So I'm actually happy when I see a black cat cross my path. I go out and play a lottery, or I'll make a wager someplace, and it just seems to work. And I think what happens is once it works once and twice and 10 times and 20 times, it becomes the tradition. So does it move from a superstition to a fact, or that's another thing to look into? That'd be a great book, Mr. Murphy.
It would be. I mean, I know that Brian and I are actually working on a few things right now. Plus, like I said, he's a family man, and I'm a family man, and we have so many things going on. If I had time, and I'm talking about like time, I would get so many things done. But and that's one of the reasons. I mean, there's just been so many things going on with my life that it's hard to sit down and just do anything anymore. That's, and I'm sorry that it took 6 or 7 months now to come back on Spaced Out Radio. But I'm glad that I'm finally back again too. But I mean, I didn't mean to be one of those types of people that just kind of vanish. But now I'm getting everything back, and things are kind of straightening out. Maybe we can start getting down to brass tacks again, as they would say.
Well, we only got about 5 minutes left, guys. 5 minutes left.
Ooh.
Out of 3 hours. Yeah, it flew completely. Now, for those listeners out there on Spaced Out Radio, I would love your listeners to listen to our show as well. And, Bryan, you have all that information, don't you?
Yes, I do, actually. We are on Black Swamp Digital Radio, and that would be blackswampradio.net every Tuesday from 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're also on YouTube. We have a Inside the Goblin Universe YouTube page. We have a website, InsideTheGoblinUniverse.com. And if you want to ask us questions or you want to guest on, or you can always contact us at our website or send an email to questions@InsideTheGoblinUniverse.com.
That's right.
And we're open to everybody.
That's right. We're open 7 days a week, so I mean that's a good thing as well too. 24 hours a day, and I think that your listeners really don't understand how unbelievably attractive Bryan and I are. And in order to prove that, you can go over to YouTube and actually see us talking as regular human beings. So I mean, I would point that out there as well too.
See, I still got that face for radio, man. I still got that face for radio, so I can't go there.
No, that is absolutely not the case. Yeah, that you are
not the case at all.
I was just telling Bryan. The other day. I said if I was gay, first person I'm going to, Dave Scott. I said that.
That works for me. That works for me.
Word for word.
You got that rock and roll edge to you.
I'm feeling like a solid 5.3 out of 10 right now, Ron. Thank you.
Oh man, no. But it's been a while since I've had this kind of fun with you, Dave. I want to tell the listeners as well too. Since I've been going through this kind of personal turmoil in my life, Dave has still been reaching out to me, which I really cannot thank him enough. This was all very new to me. After married for 15 years, you don't expect this kind of stuff to happen. But Dave has been a true friend throughout this entire endeavor that I've been embarked on. And of course, I had to have Bryan on here. Without Bryan and Dave, I would still not be in the paranormal field, and I'm glad that I had this little get-together with all of you guys tonight and shared, my new buddy, Bryan Bowden, with all the Spaced Out listeners, and I'm glad I got to reconnect with Dave as well, too. So I really had a fun time tonight, even though my voice is almost nearly gone.
Well, it's been a while. This is a marathon, man. This isn't just a simple run around the track. You do 3 hours, man. It is a marathon.
Yeah, this is not for wussies. This is not for your run-of-the-mill paranormal person. You have to. This is like the Marine Corps of the paranormal right here.
Yeah. Kind of like Paris Island. But I want to thank you very much, Dave, for having me on. I thank your audience. They're fantastic. All the questions were great. I really do appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure to be here with you to share my experiences, my knowledge, and hanging out with the guys and the ladies that are out there on Spaced Out Radio.
That's right. And he really does have a great audience. I keep on saying this all the time. Of all the shows I've ever done, he has the most responsive, educated audience that I've ever run into before. I would love to be able to have these guys come over and listen to our show every now and then and ask questions, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
I would think it would be fantastic.
I have no problem with
that. Than your show, though.
Yeah, I have no problem if you steal some of my listeners.
You know what we should do? Let's do it this way. Dave, why don't we have you on our show? How about that?
I would love that. I would definitely do that. Anytime you guys want.
Okay, well, how about like soon? Like,
sure.
What we'll do is this. Yeah, we'll arrange something and we'll have you on almost immediately.
Yes, I do have an interview on The Fringe that I'll be going on with Joe Roop on, I believe it's Tuesday the 19th. But any time after that, I'm free. Or before
right,
that.
when we pre-record, so we'll work with your schedule, as they say in England.
Yes, I'm a schedule kind of guy. I may be Canadian, but I never gave up the schedule. I hate that.
That's right. No, I had a fun time reconnecting with all these spaced out listeners as well, too. Best part of the show, I tell you.
Hey, Ron, I got to tell you this, Crypto Guru. Welcome home.
It's happy to be here. Like I said, I'm going to have another piece of your apple pie, and I'm going to take off my shoes and take a snap on your couch. So I'm glad to be here.
Please do. And Bryan, thank you so much. You know what, Bryan? I want to talk to you, just you alone. Let's get into a Dogman night. Let's do that.
Sure. You got it anytime you want.
All right, my friend. Hey, you guys hold on. I'm going to wrap up this week, if you don't mind. You guys give me a couple of minutes here.
Sure.
I want to say thank you to the Crypto Guru, Ronald Murphy, and Bryan Bowden for hopping on in tonight. Go listen to their show. The Goblin Universe is always such an interesting topic. And who knows? You might even hear old Davey on there one day soon. You never know. They're on Tuesdays, so go check them out. I want to say thank you to all of you for a great week. We got some very, very cool things coming down the pipe here in the next little bit. I also want to remind you, if you have the opportunity to do so, we would absolutely be so thankful. Head to our GoFundMe page, GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. As we try to generate the ability to create a new studio here to make a better terrestrial radio sound, so that way we can make a run. We want to remind you as well, we're all over social media. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, and our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for our archives. I want to say thanks for a great week to everybody listening at home, listening on your phones, at work, wherever you may be, and to especially those participating on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook and on Spreaker. Another amazing week, my friends. You did well. Thank you for your questions, thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing our show publicly on your social media pages and word of mouth, because together, my friends, we own the night. I'll talk to you on Monday. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. I'm out.